I'm just piecing a few squares together, and the method that I usually use is it's very similar to English paper piecing, but I call it paperless piecing because I take the paper out. I basically use a graph paper template printed out on heavier paper. I keep these for a long time. You can see that this has been ironed on and written on. I basically cut the fabric a little bit larger, and then I actually iron the edges over. I do the opposite sides first, and then the other set of sides, so it's like a little package, and then I take the template out before stitching. You can see I've already put a couple together here. Basically, you just turn the ends down against the ironed edge and put right sides together. And really the trick is to make sure that your corners actually match. This is easy to do wrong. I mean, I suggest that you hold where you are on one end and check to see the other end, because it's very easy to seemingly be matched here and end up with a little overlap on the other end. So you test it out like that. And then you'll just want to knot your thread. Make sure you're matched up. And try to get exactly on the corner when you start. And I usually take a little extra stitch at the beginning to make sure the corner stays intact. And then you'll take the smallest stitch you can without getting too close, because if you sew too close, you're going to make it too stiff, and it's going to just take too long. So you're not catching. You want to catch both pieces of fabric, but don't stitch too far in. Now this one has matching thread. I very often don't mind if the stitches show, but if you turn it over, you can see you get a pretty clean seam with a matching thread. Now I'll sew up a bunch of these. I like to sew them in strips. I'm doing a 9 patch, so I'll sew them maybe 3 and 3, and then I will sew them all together. This is actually an overcast stitch that I'm doing. Come through from the back side to the front side. Don't pull too tight. If you pull too tight, you might get a pucker and the thread might break. You really don't have to worry about the stitches being even. I never worry about that. That happens sometimes just as a result of a rhythm. You're just going to want to make sure you end right at the corner. Take a little extra stitch. And then when you're done, you'll turn it and press it with your fingers. And as you see, if you stitch well, you don't even see the light thread there. Very often I will take a coarser stitch and actually let the stitch show, because that's a nice primitive look too. Okay, so you've got 3 patches there. I've got 1 more patch to go here. I'm using various shades of indigo here just to give the piece a little variation. Okay, I've gotten to the point where I've got 2 strips here, then I'm sewing them together and basically doing the same way, facing each other, starting with the corner. And what you want to do is you want to work from corner to corner and then corner to corner in order to match everything up. And I'm just about at the meeting point here. I'm purposely sewing with 2 strands of embroidery thread in a contrasting color, because in this case I actually want the stitches to show. I find it's nice to vary that from seam to seam, because you get a nice shimmering quality. It disappears, then it shows. Nice. Okay, so I'm almost at the meeting point here, and this is really a problem for some people because you got a lot of seams. When you get to that corner, you got this great little star going on. like one of my favorite things. When you get to the point where you're going to reach this, you need to avoid these flaps here and just try to sew. You can push them out of the way. Try to sew with only the two layers of fabric. Don't catch those overlaps, because that otherwise is going to end up to be a very thick point and you won't be able to clip them. So you want to keep sewing. Make sure your corner is meeting. And you want to end up with a stitch that goes right at the end there. And you'll push your flaps back. And you want to make a stitch that crosses over like an X to keep that from coming out. And then you're starting again, so you're going to check to see that you're matched up. And you kind of just sort of hold on to that to keep it in position. And then you're going to start stitching on the next section. Turn around and take a look at that. And you can see, because the stitches are really showing here, that it's not really that even a situation. I mean, depending on how careful you are, and like I said, I am purposely trying to make these stitches show a little bit to emphasize the corner.